Meccaa here. Welcome to Meccaa's HOODOO MECCA, where we talk about everything ancestral veneration. I hope you guys are having a great start to your week, or have had a great start to your week. I hope you guys have been enjoying whatever this is supposed to be called spring, because it's freezing here where I am right now. But I hope you guys are doing well as checking out the other content, okay? I keep telling y'all this, like, don't just come and look at me. Come and look at the others on the channel as well and get your spirit fed, okay? So this week we are talking about ancestral ulcers. And this video is just gonna be kind of an overview about what ancestral ulcers are, how we use them, and things of that nature. Okay, so I wanted so badly in this video to show you guys my ancestral ulcer, and I went back and forth a lot about whether I was going to do that, because depending on who you talk to, okay, there are some people who believe that you should never show anyone your ancestral ulcer, or you should only have certain people around your ancestral ulcer. And then you have people who don't really mind, right? I am not one of the people who don't really mind. I am one of the people who holds my ancestral ulcer very, very close to me. A lot of thought, a lot of effort has went into putting up my ancestral ulcer. And I'm just old school, okay? I'm just of the belief that not everybody needs to see your ulcer. It's supposed to be something that's very sacred. So, because of that, unfortunately, I will not be showing you guys my ulcer in the coming videos. However, we will be making a mock ulcer, okay? So that was a very hard decision to come to, but I have to follow, my intuition, and I have to follow my spirit guides and my ancestors. And so that is what I was asked not to do, so I'm not going to do it. But this video, we are going to be talking about them. And a lot of you may be wondering, what is the ancestral ulcer? How do I set up an ancestral ulcer? Girl, don't worry. I got you, okay? So, in hoodoo, as I've said many times before in previous videos, our ancestors are at the foundation of our practice. We venerate our ancestors, we honor our ancestors, and one of the ways that we do that is through ancestral ulcers, right? And so what is an ancestral ulcer? I personally like to call my ancestral ulcer like my energy hub, right? That's the meetup spot, that's where we come to commune, that's where I really get to spend time with my ancestors. And I know that my ancestors are always around. It's not like they're just tied to the altar, but this is a space that I have set up for my ancestors in order to be able to just give them a kind of centralized space, a space that's all their own. There's things on the altar that are specifically for my specific ancestors. And so I feel like every ancestral altar is going to look different, right? But in hoodoo, you will hear people say many times, if you have not set up an ancestor altar, you probably shouldn't be doing any recipes or any work or anything like that. And I'm in the school of that thought. I'm in the school of that belief. I do not believe with our practice being so centered around our ancestors that you shouldn't have an ancestor altar. Like, before you do anything, you should be setting one up. And the reason for that, for me, is because that is a amazing way for you to get to know your ancestors, right? For you to get to know your lineage, your bloodline, and things of that nature. And if hoodoo if hoodoo, as it pertains to ancestral veneration, is all about our ancestors, like, that should be your main focus. So I'm often confused when people come to me and ask me, hey, Meccaa, how do I do this? Or, hey, Meccaa, can you help me out with that? And my first question is always, do you have an ancestral altar put up? And that determines how we move forward. So, my ancestor altar in particular is in my office/prayer room. And a lot of people, again, in the spirit of not overthinking things, a lot of people tend to overthink it, right? A lot of people tend to feel like you have to have this altar that is just overly decorated with things. And that's just not the case, right? And so, like I said, my ancestral altar is in my prayer room slash office. Um, I'm the type of person where I don't have a lot of people at my house anyway. So I don't have to worry about, the traffic in and out of my office. But I put it there because I felt like that was the place that made the most sense, especially seeing as though that's the place where I do all of my workings, where I do everything from my shop. And again, my ancestors are in the center of all of that. And so I felt like that was a really dope place to put them. And I haven't got any complaints so far. So, um, in the spirit of tapping into and listening to your ancestors, building an ancestral altar is a great practice for you to be able to practice that. Because for me, putting up my altar was specifically me listening to my ancestors, asking them what it is they want on their altar, asking them, specific things like what type of liquor do you want? Where do you want this? Where do you want that? So it's really a practice of just listening to your folks, right? And especially in Black communities, a lot of times we grow up and we have ancestral altars around the house and don't even be knowing it. Like, to me, that's the funny thing, and that is so indicative of how hoodoo is so ingrained into Black culture, and a lot of us didn't even know it. But if you think back to growing up, you had maybe a place in your home where your parents might have put up pictures of loved ones that have passed. They might, put their favorite drink out, somewhere. That is an ancestor altar. So I think it's interesting again that so many of us grew up in homes with altars and didn't even realize it. So before we get started, I did want to share a book with you guys. This book is called Jambalaya. It is by, I always mispronounce her name, and I'm so sorry. It's by Louise Tiche. I hope I pronounced her name right. This is an amazing book. She kind of gives her background and how she got into African traditional religions and practices. And in this book, she discusses altars. So if you may need some help putting your altar up, you may feel like you need some further guidance, this is an amazing book for you to use and be able to do that. This is on Amazon. There's also another book from, oh my God, what is her name? I cannot remember her name right now. Queen Afua, my goodness. She did an amazing book called Sacred Woman, and she covers altars in that book as well. So if you are looking for information on altars, make sure you check out those two books. It is Sacred Woman and Jambalaya, and they are both available on Amazon. Okay, so Meccaa, what goes on the ancestor altar? I'm so glad you asked. Y'all be asking all the right questions. I love it here. So on the ancestor altar is another mindset of don't overthink it, right? What do I mean by don't overthink it? Like I said earlier, putting up your ancestor altar is going to be a test of you listening to your ancestors. What do they want? Where do they want their altar? What things do they want to go on their altar, right? There is some traditional ways that people put up altars, like you have to have a white cloth and things of that nature. My ancestors didn't want those things. My ancestors wanted their altar the way that they wanted their altar. And so, like I said, I have my altar in my prayer room slash office. And I also have two other altars in there. I have a working altar where I do all of my working. So like when I make the oils for my website and for any product really for my website, I set them on my working altar so they can be consecrated, right? I have a money altar in my office where all things money go, okay, where I do weekly money work on that altar. But we have my ancestor altar, and I feel like, of course, that is the favorite altar because it allows me time to connect with my ancestors. It allows me time to spend time with them and to cater to them, right? So, not overthinking it, okay? To get started with the Ancestor altar, all you really truly need, bare minimum, is a glass of water, a white candle, and some type of aromatic. So, some incense or something of that nature, right? When you are setting up your ancestor altar, and I'm going to keep repeating this, it is very, very, very important that you listen to your ancestors, because you may want to put coffee on your ancestors' altar, which is one of the many things that we as hoodoos put on our altars. But you may want to put coffee on your altar, and your ancestors may not like that. And you be like, oh my God, but everybody does this. Like, everybody puts coffee on their altar. That's fine. But for your folks, if they're not wanting coffee, if they're not wanting whatever it is, feel free to not put that on there. This is a personal experience. This is a lineage based experience, right? You don't want to just do what somebody else is doing for the sake of just doing that. Which is why, again, it is important to talk to your ancestors, okay? But on your ancestor altar, you are going to want to place things that are representative of your ancestors, okay? Also, let me back up a little bit. You are going to want to place one of each of the four elements on your altar, right? So you're going to want water. We know that water is a conduit. Water is just dope for real. But water is a conduit, and a lot of times when you set water out, especially somewhere like on an altar, you may start to see bubbles form in the water, right? And a lot of people say that is speaking to the spirits being present, the spirits being around. Like, I have a glass of water sitting on my altar that has so many bubbles in it. Oh my goodness! So I already know what's up. But you want water. You want some type of fire, so some like incense or something like that, as well as a candle, right? A candle is represented by that as well. You want water, fire, earth. So something pertaining to the earth. I have flowers on my ancestral altar. One, because my grandfather had a green thumb, but also because earth. Um, Water, fire, air. Okay, I'm sorry. Talking to myself. Water, fire, air, earth. So water, glass of water. Fire could be incense or a candle. Earth could be flowers, and air could be incense. We'll go with incense, okay? But you want each of the four elements on your altar. Earth, you can also use crystals for the earth, right? But you always want one of the four elements on your altar, okay? As you start to build your altar, think about things that your folks loved, right? Think about things that represent your people. So on the flip side of that, you are going to need a photo of your ancestors, right? The ancestors that you want to venerate with this altar. It took me a good little minute to get pictures of my grandparents. Not so much my grandfather, because I already had pictures of him, but my grandmother, I didn't have a picture of her for a very, very, very long time. It is so funny to me that right after I moved into my home and I put my ancestor altar up, that I was gifted with pictures of her from my family that I had no idea that they had. So that's just how things work sometimes. So you definitely want some type of picture. If you can find one, talk to your family, talk to your mom, dad, uncles, aunts, whatever, and see if you can get photos if you don't have any of your own. Also, I like to put things that my grandparents loved, right? I have candy, this god awful cinnamon candy on my altar that my grandfather loved when I was growing up. So that is on the altar. I had to contact my mom about the things that my grandmother liked, because again, when my grandmother passed, I was 2 years old. So I really didn't know about the things that she liked. The one thing that I did remember that she liked was peppermint candy. So I went and got some peppermint candy. But my mom was telling me that she also really loved, what do you call them? Pork skins. Y'all, my grandma from Texas, she's so country. But she liked pork skins and things of that nature. So I put those on her altar. I know my grandfather was a whiskey drinker, and I know a lot of people say put rum on your altar. I have both. Because I knew back in the back days, my grandfather loved him a little shot of whiskey. Okay, so just things that you know that your ancestors liked in their life when they were alive, things that you know would draw them to the altar. Now we're gonna move on to the topic of food. Okay, in the hoodoo community, this has been a raging topic over the last year or so as we have more people coming into the tradition. Sorry, that is so rude. That is so rude. I'm so sorry. Um, so this has been a burning topic. Food. Okay. So one thing that we put on our ancestor altars is an offering, right? And most of the time it's food. You have, offerings that are drinks like I was just talking about, like the whiskey, but most often you're going to see an offering be something, edible, some food, right? And we're very understanding of the fact that we are putting the food on this altar knowing that our folks are not going to eat this food, but it is the essence, right? It is the nourishment that we are sharing with our folks. So some people don't believe in putting a whole plate on the altar. Like, this was a burning conversation this summer on Hoodoo Twitter about people are like, oh my God, like I cannot believe y'all put whole plates of food on your altar. That's the way that I grew up, okay? Now, granted, it wouldn't be a full size helping the way that like myself or someone else would eat, but it's definitely a full plate of food that I put on my altar, right? Some people believe in just putting a little bit, like taking a corner off of dinner that you cook or whatever. To each their own. Again, that is a testament of listening to your ancestors and figuring out what they want. My folks want their food, okay? So I put a full plate of food at least once a month, um, on my altar. Some people do it weekly, some people do it every day. Okay, listen to your people to lead you in what you're supposed to be doing. um like I said, for me, I do it once a week. I'm not once a week, once a month. Okay, um so that's been working for me, but you have to really, really have to listen to your people. I'm going to keep stressing that. But so you would cook foods that they like. So that gets kind of difficult. It gets kind of sticky because now we are living in a time where, there are folks who may have grown up eating, everything under the sun, but now they're vegan or now they're pescatarian. And you're just like, yo, my grandma want pork chops, but I don't eat pork. That's one of the things that I have to deal with. I don't eat pork. And so my grandparents, with their country selves, loved every part of the pig, okay? So I had to like kind of get over the fact that I don't eat pork and get pork and bring pork into my home and cook pork and set it on my altar. So like for All Saints Day, which we'll be talking about later on down the line, All Saints Day is just um a holiday in which we really like set aside to venerate our ancestors. But for All Saints Day, that's when they get pork. They don't get pork every time I do my altar. They get pork on special occasions. So holidays, All Saints Day, that's when they get pork. Because honestly, I can't stand the smell of it, and me nor my boyfriend eat it. So we hate having it in the house. But though that's just one of the things that they're like, hey, yeah, this turkey burger is amazing, but we want support, okay? Um, but that's one of the things that they want on their altar. So yeah, like I said, it's just a matter of listening to your folks. It's a matter of really tuning into the things that they want and to the people that they were when they were here. Don't overthink it. Like, if you don't have everything that you need to start your altar, go slow. An altar doesn't have to be a one size fits all, like a literal one size fits all. When I was staying in the hotel before I moved into my apartment, I had I used to call it my pack it up and go altar, right? I used to have it in this box, and I actually wanted to show you guys the box, but I forgot it in my office. But there was a box about this big that I used to carry my altar things in, and I could set up my altar anywhere, right? And it didn't have to be a big altar. It could just be my candle, my water, and the rest of my elements. Um, and so that's what I mean when I say don't overthink it. A lot of times we feel like we have to go all out in the essence of building an altar. As far as cleaning your altar, which is something that you should absolutely be doing, okay? We want to keep our altars fresh. We want to keep them, upkept. Um, I clean my altar once a week. So every Thursday, Thursday is the day that I do all of my spiritual ting and ting, okay? Thursday is the day that I clean my altar. So I'll take all of my altar glasses off. I will wash them in some warm salt water with a little bit of cascarilla, which are eggshells. I will let them soak in that and then, wash them, dry them. But I will take everything off of my altar, dust it off. I have a little scrubby brush that I scrub my altar with some soap and water and some Florida water, and I reset everything. This is going to be dependent on what your schedule looks like, what your ancestors are telling you to do, right? But if I don't do anything else, I make sure my altar is cleaned off every Thursday and reset with some fresh water, with fresh candles. I make sure the shot glasses are all of the things, okay? But that's again going to be dependent on your schedule and what your ancestors are telling you to do. So again, don't overthink it, but make sure you put thought into it. Make sure on the flip side of putting thought into it, you're listening to your people. Let's talk about how many times I've said that in this video about listening to your people. But it's important that you listen to your people as you're setting up your ancestor altar. Make sure you are spending time at your altar. Make sure you are making it a point to venerate and really sit with them and talk to them. Like every Sunday, I do card pulls for myself, and I do them at my altar as a way of spending time with them and listening to what they really have to say and tapping into their energy. So that is all about ancestor altars. We next week are going to build a makeshift altar. So make sure you tune in if you want to see the things that I put on my altar and maybe get some ideas and some inspiration of your own, okay? I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Make sure you are connecting with me and the other creators through the week. You can find all of my info in the description box. If you would like to book a reading, you can absolutely do that as well. And I will talk to y'all next week. Peace.